Now, the reason I'm doing this talk is that I've got roles both from BSI and from the Royal Statistical Society, which makes it particularly relevant that I make this presentation. I'm the scheme project manager for the accreditation scheme for the ISO 18404 standard, which is in fact owned by the Royal Statistical Society. And in fact, I'm also chairman of BSI Technical Committee MS6, which prepared the standard. As well as that, I'm a consultant with a background in the fields of Lean and Six Sigma and various other areas. I'm now on slide 3. So the new international standard ISO 18404 came out in December 2015, and it represents an opportunity for the first time for internationally, indeed globally recognised certification of both organisations and practitioners as competent in relation to Six Sigma and Lean or Lean. Ultimately, accredited certification will cover all types of organisations or parts of organisations, and in particular will relate to the organisations themselves or to specific skill set related to tasks such as Six Sigma Green Belt, Six Sigma Black Belt, Six Sigma Master Black Belts, or their Lean equivalents, which the standard refers to as Lean Practitioner, Lean Leader, and Lean Expert. And it will also allow for simultaneous certification in relation to Six Sigma and Lean, or for just the Lean side, or just the Six Sigma side. The reason the standard was created was because of issues in relation to bad practice and poor training in relation to Six Sigma and Lean, and we'll talk more about those as we work through the webinar. Slide 4. Of course, Six Sigma today and Lean is a very big and lucrative improvement market, training market, and recognition market. And it has been until now unregulated, and there has been quite a lot of abuse, some of which has been discussed in the professional literature. Indeed, any organisation may certify practitioners, and many, many organisations have, some of them of higher status and standing than others. There's not really been any internationally recognised standards until this point, and the use of certification and accreditation have been used pretty interchangeably, with the bodies certificating people also accrediting the scheme under which they're certified, which is really rather bad practice. As an illustration of this on slide 5, you can see some of the logos, which a simple Google search of Six Sigma certification or Lean certification will pull up. There are many, many more. You will see there probably the biggest, the ASQ, the American Society of Quality. You'll also see on the right-hand side the British Quality Foundation, both of which use a body of knowledge approach and which certify practitioners. As well as that, there are some organisations which are perhaps less well known and where the professional status and standing of them are less clear, for instance, the International Association for Six Sigma Certification. These two diagrams on slide 6, which are in fact from Google Trends, show what one gets if one enters Six Sigma certification on the left-hand side and Lean certification on the right-hand side. They're a few months out of date, but the general trends continue in the current data. If you look at Lean certification on the right-hand side in particular, it is pretty apparent that we have a strong upward trend in certification based on Google searches. People are still interested at an increasing rate in looking for Lean certification using Google. On the left-hand side, we have seen the similar for Six Sigma certification, still slightly rising, perhaps a bit more flat, but maintaining a very high level of interest in relation to certification. So it is quite apparent that Six Sigma and Lean are areas from which the need for standardization in terms of certification is very real and is continuing. This is essentially an abstract from the standard at the top of slide 7. The argument in the standard itself in ISO18404 is that if you advertise for a Six Sigma black belt and a candidate turns up saying they are one, how do you know? How do you know they're competent? It's great if you yourself are competent enough to determine this, but it is very difficult in the circumstance where an organisation wishing to pursue Six Sigma and is recruiting accordingly is unable to tell whether the candidates appearing are in fact very competent or indeed lying to them. And a purpose of the standard is to do something about that, also for the lean side. How can we be sure what is the approach and what is the basic standard, and how can we be clear that people coming forward or organisations telling us they're using Six Sigma or lean are actually knowledgeable and using the methods appropriately? This introduction to the standard also picks up on the fact that in the preparation of the standard, consideration was given to the concept of lean Six Sigma, since the phrase is in common usage, but that it was impossible to determine an unambiguous definition of lean and Six Sigma as one terminology, lean Six Sigma. And so for the standard's sake, we have separated them, and we have lean and Six Sigma in the standard, so you can be certified for lean, or you can be certified for Six Sigma, or you can be certified for lean and Six Sigma. And candidates coming forward, or organisations coming forward, which claim both, will have to demonstrate the competencies in relation to both. On slide 8, we have a simplified version of the contents of the ISO 18404 standard. And like all ISO standards, in fact, in practice, there's very few core clauses within the standard. Once we've taken out the forward, the introduction, the scoping statement, the references, and the terms and definitions. Here, we have 3 key operational clauses, clauses 4, 5, and 6, and we have important annexes, particularly Annex A and Annex B. Clause 4 deals with the competency of the key Six Sigma or lean and Six Sigma personnel. These are the black belts or green belts or master black belts, or the lean practitioners, leaders, or experts. In clause 5, we have the adequacy of the organisation in relation to its Six Sigma lean or lean and Six Sigma approach and its deployment, how it goes about it, what its objectives are, etc. And in clause 6, we have resource management as it appears in the standard, very much about the people resources, which we'll be talking about. Annex A defines the competencies which are required for Six Sigma personnel. Annex B defines the competencies which are required for lean personnel. And Annex C defines the competencies required for the combination personnel who are, in fact, key experts in relation to both lean and Six Sigma, and in fact just contains a statement to the effect that both sets of competencies are required at the various levels. We'll talk more about that soon. So let's start with clause 4. And clause 4 makes the definition of the skills and education and training requirements in terms of adequate and appropriate education, training, skills, competencies, and experience, and refers to the various annexes which we have just been talking about. The clause also requires that we have records of relevant experience, which have been recorded, validated, controlled, and maintained in a legible, identifiable, and retrievable form. Very common with all ISO standards, such as, for instance, in ISO 9001 for quality management systems. Now, here on clause 10, we pick out the 3 levels of expert in relation to Six Sigma, key personnel as defined in the standard: the green belt, the lowest level, the black belt and the master black belt. In practice, organisations pursuing Six Sigma have other levels also. Below the green belt, they might have yellow belts or white belts, for instance, and they may have project sponsors or champions. But for the purposes of the standard at this time, we just have the 3 levels in relation to Six Sigma. Where an organisation is doing both Lean and Six Sigma, or somebody has competence in both Lean and Six Sigma, then again the green belt, black belt and master belt, black belt terminology is used. So you can be a Six Sigma green belt or a Lean and Six Sigma green belt, and similarly for the other 2 categories. In relation to Lean, the 3 levels then are equivalent. We have Lean practitioner corresponding approximately to green belt on the Six Sigma side, Lean leader corresponding approximately to black belt, and Lean expert corresponding approximately to master black belt. Now, here we are on slide 12, and we're looking at the introduction to the Annex A, which defines for green belts what is expected of a green belt according to ISO 18404. In fact, the green belt is expected to deliver the benefits of Six Sigma projects to the organisation. And often these will be within the green belt's usual field of employment, and the green belt will work with local line management to identify and quantify opportunities for improvement within that environment, and may work under the direction of a black belt or master black belt, or as a member of a larger project, led, for example, by a black belt or master black belt. Or they might work on a smaller Six Sigma project, perhaps under the direction of a black belt. They may also coach process operators, often referred to as yellow belts, and process improvement methods and activities. Now, the next level up from the green belt is the black belt, which appears on slide 13, and a similar statement appears here. Again, the black belt is expected to deliver the agreed benefits to the organisation of the projects, and will work with others to identify and quantify opportunities for improvement. They will organise multidisciplinary teams where necessary and manage improvement projects, and lead improvement projects or facilitate green belt projects using the so-called DMAIC methodology. DMAIC being a project management methodology based on the phases of define, measure, analyse, improve and control, so that we don't lose the benefits of the project, the control phase. They'll also be expected to train, coach and mentor the green belts on DMAIC methodology and associated process improvement tools and techniques, and participate in the gate reviews after the define stage or measure stage, etc., whereby we progress to the next stage of the project when we feel that we have adequately completed the earlier phase. And typically, they'll be involved in the presentations at these gate reviews with an emphasis on the accomplishments which have been achieved during that phase. The Master Black Belt is the top level of the 3, and their role is to support black belts in the application of the DMAIC methodology as it says at the top of slide 14, and the selection and use of the tools and techniques required. They will lead improvement projects as required, determining if any training activities are appropriate and effective in the Six Sigma arena, provide training in one or more of the tools and techniques with Six Sigma to black and green belts as required, assist in the identification of suitable improvement projects and assist in the determination of the scope of the project and periodic reviews of those projects. They'll provide internal consultancy in the more advanced statistics and provide support so that the improvements are actually realised and maintained, and coach and mentor the black belts in the application of DMAIC and the tools and how to select them. Now, on slide 15, we have a very important collection of competencies for Six Sigma. These are the 23 Six Sigma competencies defined in ISO 18404. And you will notice that these 23 competencies, which are required in various ways for green belts, black belts, and master black belts, are quite a high-level set of competencies competencies. They're not just concerned with low-level tools for statistical analysis, but also are dealing with much broader aspects such as creativity, customer focus, decision-making, change management, risk analysis, stakeholder management, etc. And these reflect the fact that the ISO 18404 standard was designed to be a standard which provided the basis for defining the competency of Six Sigma and team personnel in terms of their ability to do the job and not just what they know. So we don't place important emphasis on the techniques. Instead, we place important emphasis on all the aspects of doing the job of being a black belt, green belt, etc., in terms of being able to manage change, being able to make decisions, being able to motivate others, etc., as appears on this list. You will notice that Six Sigma tools appear on the list as well as one of the 23 competencies, but all the myriad of Six Sigma tools which exist, over 140 in some approaches, are collected under a single item on this list of competencies, with a lot more softer skills being there as well, included on the list. It's an important list. It starts with being able to identify the benefits in relation to Six Sigma projects and prioritise them. To understand and be able to apply business process improvement, to manage change, to acquire data for analysis, to develop leadership in oneself and in others, to be creative, to be customer focused, to be able to make decisions, to lead oneself and teams, and have good interpersonal skills, to motivate others, to have interesting aspects of numeracy, not just the ability to add up, to be able to do practical problem solving, to present and report well, to be able to think in terms of processes, to project manage, to be able to analyse risk, to self-review and do one's own development, to manage stakeholders, to understand statistical tools and statistical concepts and statistical software, be able to use it, and to be able to sustain the benefits achieved and to be able to control, keep them. Here is an extract on slide 16 from the ISO 18404 standard, table A1. It's the beginning of the Greenbelt competencies table which is presented here, and it shows for the first three of the competencies the requirements. A competency is in the second column, the performance criteria which defines it is in the third column, and suggested evidence of understanding the competency is in the fourth column. As well as having to provide that evidence, however, a successful Greenbelt candidate would also have to provide evidence of applying the competency, which appears in the next, the fifth column. And for Black Belts, there's a sixth column, which is suggested evidence of managing the competency, and for Master Black Belts, a last column, which is suggested evidence of training the competency. Generally, as we move across from Green Belts to Black Belts to Master Black Belts, the standard requires that we go from just understanding and being able to apply the competency, each of the 23 competencies, to also being able to manage the competency and to also be able to train others in the competency. But it is not a clear, neat progression. It varies a bit haphazardly, depending on what the competency is, what the requirement is in terms of management and training. So here on slide 17, we start the equivalent process as defined in the standard with Annex B for the lean side, having done it now for the Six Sigma side. On slide 17, we have the role definition for the lean practitioner to participate in lean improvement, and these will all usually be within the lean practitioner's usual field of employment and operation. The lean practitioner will typically work to implement the improvements in a local area and will perhaps use work-based layout techniques to improve process flow, will lead improvement activities and quantify the benefits, will coach team members on process improvement methods, and will run training sessions on lean techniques. On slide 18, we go to the lean leader, equivalent to the black belt on the Six Sigma side. The role of the lean leader is to drive improvements in the organisation, not just participate. They'll often be within the lean leader's usual field of employment and operation. And the lean leader will work with local line management again to identify and drive improvement within the local environment. They may use takt time concepts and cycle times to identify appropriate resource requirements, but they will be looking at the time taken to do the various stages of processes and the time available, which is really what B in this list is about. They'll be required to lead improvement activities and quantify the benefits, and to coach lean practitioners on process improvement methods and run training sessions on lean techniques. Finally, on slide 19, we have the lean experts, the equivalent of the master black belt level, and their role is to support the lean leaders in the application of lean principles and selection and use of techniques, and they will lead improvement initiatives as required, determine what training activities are appropriate and effective, provide training in lean approaches to lean leaders, assist in the identification of suitable areas for lean implementation, and in periodic reviews of the implementation. They'll provide internal consultancy on lean, provide support so that improvements identified are actually realised and maintained, and they'll coach and mentor the lean leaders in the implementation of lean principles and selection and use of techniques. Now, for the lean side, instead of the 23 competencies we have for Six Sigma, we only have 6 lean competencies. However, these subdivide so that, as we can see on slides 20 and 21, we still have a substantive requirement in terms of lean competencies alongside the Six Sigma competencies required for the Six Sigma roles. So for lean, we need to understand and communicate the expected benefits of lean. And that's very much about applying the knowledge in practice as well as learning the basic concepts and history of lean. We also have the lean principles in terms of value and the value stream, flow and pull, and pursuit of perfection. We have the need to manage stakeholders, which implies communication skills, the understanding of the effect of change at the organisational and individual level. We have the measurement of process performance. We have, again, as on the Six Sigma side, the emphasis on creativity, very important for lean implementation. And we have very specific to lean visual management and control, making use of visual displays in order to see the state of the processes. Going on to slide 21, we've got concepts of optimising the use of the workplace, laying out the workplace for optimum flow, team-based problem solving, the implementation of the approach is the analysis of data, again risk analysis, sustainment of the benefits obtained, managing productive time, planning workload, self-review and self-development, and again lean techniques, very much like how the Six Sigma tools appeared on the other side of the equation. Going on to slide 22, we see again the table extracted from the standard from Annex B for the lean side. And as I said, on this side, it's less of a clean picture because immediately, even with the first of the competency, which is about being able to understand and explain the benefits of lean, you see a training requirement immediately in the table, even at the lowest level, the lean practitioner level, which is shown here. And this is because the lean practitioner needs to be able to communicate the benefits of lean to the team working on the improvement activity. So with the green belt on the Six Sigma side, we didn't have anything in these last two columns, but already we have things in the last two columns in the case of the lean practitioner. Now, Annex C, which is shown on slide 23, really is a bit of a cop-out, you could say, because it simply says that for each of the levels of Six Sigma and Lean, if you're going to be a Lean and Six Sigma green belt, you need to have the competencies from both sides, from the Lean side and the Six Sigma side, corresponding to that level. So that's the Six Sigma green belt and the Lean practitioner. Similarly, for a Lean and Six Sigma black belt, you need to have the competencies corresponding to Six Sigma black belt and the Lean leader. And similarly, for a Lean and Six Sigma master black belt, you need to have the competencies for the Six Sigma master black belt and the Lean expert. On slide 24, we go on to clause 5 of the standard, which deals with the adequacy of the organisation with regard to the approach and deployment of Six Sigma and Lean, or one of them. And the sub-clauses of this deal with the Lean and Six Sigma, or Six Sigma, strategy. Firstly, now to have a strategy, you need to have objectives that you're trying to achieve through the strategy. So very importantly here, we're looking at why the organisation is doing Lean and or Six Sigma and the strategy to achieve it. And this should be colouring the whole of the implementation of the organisation, and the standard requires that this is well defined so that we can refer to it. In many cases, it's not so clear in actual organisations. Clause 5.2 deals with the adequacy of the organisation's Six Sigma Lean or Lean and Six Sigma architecture. This is basically about the infrastructure, about the reporting lines, the committees, etc., the way that Six Sigma and or Lean are in fact implemented within the organisation, and do they support the strategy in pursuit of the objectives. Subclause 5.3 deals with the competency of the key personnel, which we've referred to, and whether the organisation is in control and is making sure adequately that the personnel do have the key competencies and they're being maintained. And subclause 5.4 deals with the adequacy and continual improvement of the organisational deployment of the Lean and or Six Sigma approaches. Now, on slide 25, we now look in broad terms at clause 6 on resource management. We're looking at this in a bit more detail following this. And you will see that clause 6 on resource management is very much about people. It deals with provision of resources and monitoring of requirements, and particularly in relation to key personnel and maintaining their competencies, and that means green belts and Lean practitioners, black belts and Lean leaders, and master black belts and Lean experts. The last two sub-clauses, 6.5 and 6.6, are very much about the organisation rather than the individual personnel, and about maintaining the competence of the organisation, and we'll look at those. So on slide 26, we look at those in more detail, those various sub-clauses. So key personnel needs to be defined and identified by the organisation. So you've got to say who your green belts or your Lean practitioners, etc., actually are. And you'll determine and make sure that they get the resources necessary to support the Six Sigma or Lean implementation, and make sure they're effectively used. So that's going to be making sure perhaps that we've got sponsors of projects or champions in place. Also, the resources need to be provided and effectively used to deploy and maintain the Six Sigma and or Lean implementation and continually improve its effectiveness, and to achieve those defined objectives that we referred to previously. Now, it is possible to use external resources, i.e. external staff for this, provided these are seen as being a long-term part of the organisational resources. On slide 27, we have subclause 6.2 about the ongoing monitoring requirements, where basically the organisation gets an opportunity to review and adjust appropriate resources for the Six Sigma and or Lean programme at regular defined intervals, and to make sure that the adequate resources are there for the measurement, analysis and improvement of what's going on in Lean and or Six Sigma. In 6.3, we have the key personnel shall demonstrate the attainment of the defined competencies and objectives, maintain and enhance their skills and competencies, and make sure that they maintain records of the training skills, competencies and experience accordingly. On slide 28, on slide 28, we have the maintaining the competence of key personnel at the various levels. This is a very important clause, subclause 6.4. Green belts and lean practitioners prepare and produce work experience logs which contain evidence of their experience in meeting the requirements of the competencies. These are reviewed internally every year by the organisation by an internal black belt or master black belt, and the status of the green belt or lean practitioner will be renewed based upon satisfactory evidence. At the black belt or lean leader level, there's again annual review internally within the organisation by a master black belt, but also they'll be reviewed every 2 years by an appropriate authority. And at this point, the certification bodies, in discussion with the Royal Statistical Society, would see the Royal Statistical Society as the appropriate authority to do that review via an assessment centre. And again, status will be reviewed renewed subject to satisfactory evidence. At the Master Black Belt or Lean Expert level, we don't have the annual review because there's nobody above the Master Black Belt or Lean Expert in the Six Sigma or Lean hierarchy, but we still retain the 3-yearly need for review and reapproval by the Royal Statistical Society. Going on to slide 29, we have 6.5, which is about the organisation. The organisation being certified needs to plan and implement the monitoring, measurement, analysis and improvement process to demonstrate attainment of the objectives and deployment metrics, ensure continued applicability of the approaches and plans of action, enable organisational learning and continually improve the effectiveness of implementation, and these shall include determination of the applicable methods and justification of these methods to the certification body. Now, the justification of these methods is important because an argument that, say, on the Six Sigma side, that experimental design methods are not necessary may be appropriate for a service organisation in certain circumstances, but is unlikely to be valid for a manufacturing one. So the organisation is going to need to have to justify the appropriate methods which are being used within the toolkit and to be able to justify the extent of the use. Moving on to slide 30, we've got the statement about maintaining the competence of the organisation. Now remember that the practitioner's competence is checked on an annual and or 3-yearly basis, but the organisation again will have a 3-yearly review cycle. Working with the accredited certification bodies, it looks like they will go for a similar cycle they use for ISO 9001 or ISO 14001, which is that whilst it's a 3-yearly renewal, they spread the work of looking at the whole of the system over those 3 years via surveillance visits, and that's likely to take place in a similar way. So we now come to an important area which is still developing, which is on slide 31 we commence, with the certification process and how to apply. The standard ISO 18404-2015 was published on the 1st of December 2015. And we are now working towards bringing forward this standard via a sector scheme to become an accredited standard so that certification bodies, such as the large ones, BSI QA, Lloyd's Registered Quality Assurance, SGS, Yardsley, etc., and the smaller, very many certification bodies which are accredited, would be able to certificate organisations as meeting this standard for Six Sigma or Lean practice under accreditation of the United Kingdom Accreditation Service, UCAS, which is, of course, recognised worldwide. The intention, in fact, is that the standard will be brought forward for harmonised European accreditation so that accreditation will not just be in the certification body checks the organisation, and a national accreditation body checks the certifier to make sure they're following the rules as well. In this case, the sponsoring body for the scheme is the Royal Statistical Society, so that to ensure that the practice in the accreditation of certification bodies and the rules for Six Sigma Lean implementation is carried out consistently and according to the accreditation standards. Now, the situation with individuals applying for certification is more complicated. Individuals can be certified under the standards as well as organisations. That's quite unique in an ISO standard at the current point in time. That may be a trend. An individual may work for an organisation which is certificated, in which case if they're at the green belt or lean practitioner level, they will just be certified through their own organisation, although they will be listed on a central register of certificated personnel, and therefore is essentially a transferable qualification. At the black belt and the master black belt level, or lean leader or lean expert level, they will be in fact certified by the Royal Statistical Society under the standard. And the Royal Statistical Society will run assessment centres and will ask the applicant to provide documentary evidence, a portfolio of evidence that they meet the required competencies, and will then take them through a process of an interview and possibly unseen test in order to verify that. And that process will take place initially for the certification of the individuals, and it will also take place essentially on a 3-year cycle for the black belt, master black belt, lean leader and lean expert levels. As I said, at the green belt and the practitioner levels, certification will entirely be done internally unless the organisation, in fact, is not itself certificated under the standard, in which case the individuals can again apply to the Royal Statistical Society directly for such certification as green belts or lead practitioners. On slide 33, we have the position for the organisations applying, and it's one of the principles of accreditation that organisations can choose which certification body they wish to, in fact, certificate them, as long as sensibly it's an accredited certification body. At the moment, we are working in the Royal Statistical Society, in the sector scheme, with 3 of the largest accredited certification bodies in the world and a number of the smaller ones. And it is likely that we'll have quite a large group of certification bodies available to be accredited for ISO 18404, and the choice of which certification body to apply to will be up to the applicant organisation. And the process, however, is likely to be similar in nature to ISO 9001 certification, and the certification bodies are talking that where an organisation is already ISO 9001 certificated, they could do joint audits and basically audit and certificate both standards at once. Essentially, this opens up the opportunities for integrated management systems and various other things as well. On slide 34, we have again the reference back to simultaneous certification being possible for Lean and Six Sigma. This is true at the organisational level as well as the individual level, and we have talked about the terminology in those cases. And slide 35 says that essentially for the individual level, match the same points that we've said previously. Now, slide 36 is a very important slide because it's about preparing to become certified under the standard. Having an ISO standard for reference is a very important thing because ISO is so well recognised around the world. It covers so many areas, and in particular, standards such as ISO 9001 for quality management systems or ISO 14001 for environmental management have become so well embedded in our society that ISO standards are the premier level of certification for organisations. So having that certification for an organisation, ISO 18404 certification, will actually mean that we can take seriously that they're genuine Six Sigma or lean organisations. But in a similar way, certifications for the practitioners, the green, black or master black belts, and the lean practitioners, leaders or experts under the standard, will become, we believe, the premier certification for practitioners of Six Sigma and or lean. And if you want to obtain certification, you need to gather evidence, because the standard requires you to be able to demonstrate all the competencies, the 23 Six Sigma competencies and all the 16 lean competencies, all of them, to whatever level is required, which will involve not just understanding the competence and applying it, but to varying extents to also being able to manage your competence and indeed train others in the competence. So you'll need to build up a portfolio of evidence for this. And the best thing to do if you're going through training for Six Sigma or lean is to, from the very beginning, be very rigorous in terms of building up, labelling, maintaining a document system for this. And then the documents can form the basis for your work experience log, which is required for you to maintain certification under the ISO18404 standard. The portfolio of evidence is quite extensive. It can be cross-tabulated against the competencies, and it will really require everything which is involved in the process, from the basic definition of the improvement project in the first case, if it's project-based, as in the Six Sigma sense, right the way through the whole of the process. And that says that on slide 37. On slide 38 then, you need to think about the evidence. And it's a really, really important issue. That it's not just what you can do, you're going to have to evidence and have the evidence to hand, and indeed answer questions about it, etc. Now, that basically finishes my talk. I just want to say before finishing that we are running some half-day events free. The next one is on 7th of June in Nottingham. We are running a 2-day course on preparing for organisational certification. There's one taking place in June, and there'll be a later one in July at the Royal Statistical Society, which I haven't had the date confirmed on yet. And there are various other things which are detailed on this slide if you're interested in knowing more about the standard. And finally, then, guys, we come to questions. And I would ask you to use the question and answer tab at the top, or indeed, if you really wish to, you can ask by public chat. Oh, and finally, thank you for listening, if you have. Do we have any questions, please? It's all very blank up here. Thank you, Sarah. Sarah, the whole of the webinar will be available subsequently. Do I need to answer it? Oh, sorry, yes. I've just been told by Camilla, who has corrected me, that it is really important that I do read the question out. So Sarah's question was, hi Tony, will you be sharing the slides? And the answer, Sarah, is, as I've said, yes, we will be sharing the slides in the form of the webinar itself will be recorded. It will be up on YouTube by the end of next week. And so the whole of the talk and the slides will be available then. And I hope very much that you'll make use of them. Now, I see in the chat area from Michael, I have, what are the timings for the accrediting certification bodies? My understanding of the process, and this is the first time I've actually gone through the whole of the process with accreditation, is we're currently taking the standard, we're preparing the sector scheme documents, the certification bodies and myself on behalf of the RSS are preparing the sector scheme documents. These need to go through a committee in July, and the intention will then be to formally, my understanding is that UCAS would at that point formally invite whatever certification body that wants to, not just the ones who are currently working with us, to come forward if they wish to be part of the pilot scheme. That's my current understanding, Michael, of the situation. If I go back to the questions in the question areas, do you believe that clients will require organisations to certify against the standard, says Barry? interesting one. The interest I'm getting at the moment is a lot of it is internal. It's because people want to tidy up their Lean or Six Sigma programs and make sure they keep their eye on the ball. It's too easy to let things drift. Now, I do believe that both the areas of Lean and Six Sigma, there is an opportunity here and some interest in perhaps pushing this down the supply chain, and that certification may be required. But I don't see that as being particularly common or the main reason for certification. I think it may happen, but not necessarily across the board. An organisation doing Lean, for instance, may well require its suppliers to demonstrate that they're also Lean organisations as well. This is a great way of doing it, of course. Okay. Does this require ISO 13053 in any way, says Jan? If you don't know ISO 13053, it's a standard that was also prepared by MS6, BSI Technical Committee. It's a guidance standard on Six Sigma. In many ways, it goes further than ISO 18404, and we have deliberately left out some aspects of 13053 in the requirements for ISO 18404. For instance, the proportion of green belts or black belts or Lean practitioners, which is discussed in 13053 in a guidance way, is not a requirement in 18404. 13053 is referred to in ISO 18404 in terms of techniques, etc. So it's a good reference document. It does relate, but not everything in ISO 13053 is in fact called up. And also ISO 13053 is due for review fairly soon, so that it's a little bit out of kilter with the current 18404. Now, I've got a question here from Emma, which says, as a business, National Grid are investigating this as an option for us at the moment. Would it be possible for the assessment centres to come to us, or would employees need to go to an external centre? Now, I can only speak in my role at the moment. I believe the centres can come to you. Where there's adequate volume, we can take the assessment centres that the Royal Statistical Society will be running out to a client. It's really more a commercial issue in terms of cost than anything else, so that would be possible. What is the associated cost per applicant? This is not determined. The calculations I have done so far would suggest that it would not be aggressively expensive compared to other certification schemes which have been offered and the costs which have been associated with them. But I don't think the Royal Statistical Society will be very happy with me if I put an actual cost of it on it at the moment, I'm afraid. So I'm going to have to dodge that question. I apologise for that, but I can't really do anything else about that. A question from Mike. Now, Mike, this is the first one I'm not exactly sure on. How does this relate to or overtake the LCS? Will you please just define LCS for me, Mike, please? Thank you. Lean Competency System. Thank you at the bottom. Now, I believe you are referring to a system which came out of originally Cardiff University, the centre at Cardiff for Lean, which is now closed down. And I believe that the competence system is still in use partly commercially by, I think, one of the people that was actually at the centre. It differs quite considerably. The original standard we used when we were developing 18404 was an Australian standard, which looked in much more detail at higher level aspects than I would say are typical for the Lean or Six Sigma area, which tends to be very tool related. So if you look at the competencies for Six Sigma and Lean in this standard, in ISO 18404, the tools are mentioned, but they tend to take up no more than about 3 or 4 of the competencies, with the other competencies, the other 13 Lean competencies and the other 19 Six Sigma competencies being much more associated with higher level skills associated, for instance, with stakeholder management, creativity, teamwork, etc. So I would say it does relate to the Lean competency system, but it kind of extends it, and it doesn't prescribe in the detail of the level of the specific tools in the way that I believe believe my memory of the lean competence system is. So, do we have more questions? Oh, yes, we do. Okay. Right. So now we've got from Emma, will there be any overlap with the FLCPS accreditation, Facility of Leadership and Creative Problem Solving? Emma, I think there's overlap, but there is not explicit connection. The standard has been produced essentially independently, but based on the same current climate of background associated. So I believe it's related, but in fact, there's no explicit connectivity. Can organisations get certification with only lean practitioner and Six Sigma belt staff? Peter's asked. And the answer to that is yes. It's an interesting question. We believe it's possible. We might need UCAS, United Kingdom Accreditation Service, to rule on it, but we think it's possible. What would happen is if an organisation was, say, doing lean and had lean practitioners only and no lean leaders or lean experts, it would have 2 or 3 choices as to how it could operate under the standard if it wished to be certificated. It could buy in part of a lean leader or lean expert on a regular basis so that there was a long-term arrangement, and that would then mean that it would be possible that the lean practitioners would be, in fact, internally certificated by part of the lean leader who was there part of the time, and similarly green belts could be certificated by an external black belt who was there part of the time. Alternatively, they could ask the Royal Statistical Society to provide that service, or they could send their green belts or lean practitioners for annual reviews with the Royal Statistical Society. So all of those 3 options would be possibilities. I would like to thank you all for participating. I would like to say I'm always very happy to hear from anyone, so please, my email address is on the slide set. If you've got any queries, get in touch with me.